Face Off. I'm your host, Jason, and on tonight's show, it's all about found footage. It's the Blair Witch Project versus the original Paranormal Activity. On this episode, we have journalist Michelle, actress Haley, owner of Deadly Grounds Canada, Brad, and your friendly neighborhood Uncle Pete. They join the horror face-off slasher Leighanne, and me, your host, Jason.
Hey everybody, welcome to Horror Face-Off, and tonight it's all about found footage. The Blair Witch Project versus Paranormal Activity on the Kings of Horror YouTube channel. So, I'm going to just quickly go through the rules.
We take two horror films and match them up against each other. Using specific categories, the show's fearless panelists dissect every bone-chilling detail. In the end, the film that has the most category points wins Horror Face-Off. But the panel needs to think fast, for they only have a limited time to make their case. If they take too long, they will be killed.
Leighanne will kill them. Hi, Leighanne.
Hi, how's it going?
I'm good. All right, so is everybody in a ghoulish mood? Let's get right down to it. And we're going to start off with plot. And for this, we're going to start off with your friendly neighborhood Uncle Pete, who's now a veteran of the show.
Thanks. Plot, I got to give it to Blair Witch right away. Because the way it goes in depth, the history of the Blair Witch, you got these kids who want to do this documentary on it, and they go out into the woods. Paranormal Activity is good, but it's just basic. It's a haunted house, and they got cameras up. But Blair Witch, you got the backstory of the Blair Witch. They go to Burkittsville, filming like it felt like a real found footage movie as if it really happened. And just the whole history of the Blair Witch. They don't tell you too much. They tell you just enough, like what is really going on here. Paranormal Activity, it's a ghost story.
All right. The first one has been logged under time. Well, I'm assuming, Michelle, you liked us, and that's why you're back for a second round. Nice to have you back. You're up. Plot.
I'm going to have to go with the Blair Witch right off. I agree with what Pete said. The backstory is much more interesting. You've got 3 film students going out into the woods. There's a child murderer, a witch. It's just spookier to me. So, Blair Witch.
All right. Haley.
So I am also going to go with Blair Witch, just because I think it is a much more complicated plot. Kind of touching on what both Pete and Michelle said, like you have, this underground, underlying spookiness of, who is the Blair Witch? You're like, oh, when are we going to see her? When are we going to see her? So you keep, you're much more on your toes with that plot, and it's definitely much more exciting than Paranormal Activity because there are so many things that are similar. And it's also just the way that it's shot, it is much more kind of unsettling. And then you're kind of like, did I see that? Did I not see that? So I think that Blair Witch.
Kill! I got one.
I know when they start off quick, you're
tonight.
worried. Excuse me. All right. Last but not least, and you're only last because I forgot you were coming on the show, but that's because I love you so much, Brad.
Yeah.
Have at it.
Yeah, I'm going to echo the rest of the panel on this particular category. Absolutely the plot of Blair Witch, especially given the time when this movie came out. The story is wonderful. The plot is wonderful. Yeah, Blair Witch all the way. I think it just did a great job of telling, a legend. And it was really well done.
All right, so that's round one, and after round one, Paranormal Activity has some work to do. Let's see if it makes up for it in setting. Yeah, we'll see. Starting us off is Haley.
So for setting, I definitely have to give it to Blair Witch because, it's spooky, it's in the forest. Everyone was afraid of the forest, as a child. So that's usually, like when I watched it, I didn't watch it when it initially came out because it came out in 99 and I was not really speaking at at that point in time. But when we did watch it many moons later, just the whole setting and like when we watched it, my friend's place was like in the forest, and we're like, ooh, this is so spooky. As where Paranormal Activity, it could happen anywhere, which I guess in a way does make it scarier. But I think Blair Witch just has a much more interesting
Kill.
Haley,
Loving
The
this.
two for tonight.
I know, love it. Let's see if she
I
can
like
get a
it.
hat trick. You know I love this. So, all right, Michelle, you're up. Setting.
I'm gonna have to also go with Blair Witch. The setting is much spookier. The Black Hills Forest is creepy. At night, you don't know what's out there. For me, it's a lot creepier than just the couple's home in Paranormal Activity. So definitely Blair Witch.
All right, Uncle Pete.
I got to give Paranormal Activity credit because in a home you're supposed to feel safe, but in their home they weren't safe. So I'll give credit there. But I'd much rather be in my home than out in the middle of the woods at midnight. And in my home, I can search. I can see what's behind this counter, behind the couch. In the woods, there's bushes and trees and stuff up, below, and high. You don't know what's around you. You hear weird noises. You don't know what is what. It could be an owl, but it can sound like a demon to you. Woods is way more terrifying, especially when it's pitch black outside.
All right, Brad.
Well, not to say exactly what I said last time, but I echo the feelings of the rest of the panel. Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it, right? I mean, Blair Witch, whether you like the movie or you don't, I mean, it's a very polarizing movie. The setting is really, really great, even when they're in the town talking to the townsfolk, when they're out in the woods. Everything about it, as far as the setting is concerned, is really, really cool. And I think a lot of people, after that movie, went on their own little local legends haunt and local legends road trips to try to find these sorts of things that exist in the same vein.
All right. So Paranormal Activity's hole gets dug deeper. All right, so we move on to filmmaking, and for this one, we're going to start off with Michelle.
I think it's really interesting that Eduardo Sanchez and Daniel Meyer thought that paranormal documentaries were scarier than horror movies. So they basically decided to combine both things. It's not the first found footage film, but it did jumpstart the subgenre. So I'm going to have to give it to Blair Witch again. I don't really think Paranormal Activity brought anything new to the subgenre when it came out.
Okay. Uncle Pete.
Easy one for me, Blair Witch. The whole making you believe it's a real found footage film. The marketing was genius with it, and if people never heard of it, oh, what's this trailer? Some people might have believed that was 1,000% real. Calling the police, hey, you got to find these people. It was just genius, and the shaky cam. In Paranormal Activity, a lot of the shots are still, or with the steady cam. With here, it's shaky. It makes you feel nervous. They're running. You're running with them. It's dark. You don't see what's behind you. It makes you feel way more uncomfortable, way more creepy. That marketing and everything was just done so well.
All right. Brad.
I find this one's a little bit harder for me, to be honest, because I think both of these movies are products of their time and actually really fit the period of time when they came out. Like when Blair Witch came out, I mean, yeah, the internet was kind of in its infancy. We couldn't really fact check these things. I think everyone that saw this, like Uncle Pete said, it's kind of like, what the hell? Is this really happening? Like, you really had that feeling, right? But also in 2007, when Paranormal Activity came out, that also kind of rejuvenated the genre, the subgenre. And it did a really good job of it as well. I will give the nod to Blair Witch just because it did kind of like, after a long period of time, take the subgenre and
Kill.
Put it over there.
Gotcha.
God,
You got
Brad.
me. This time for real, I will agree you got me this time.
Doesn't matter if you disagreed last time, you still died.
Brad's like when you're taking a guy to the penalty box and he's arguing the whole way there. All right, Haley, let's see if you could stop the bleeding for Paranormal Activity or even the bleeding for just yourself because you keep dying. You're up.
Both of those I can't promise. I think it's going to be the same result. So I'm going to go with Blair Witch Project. Agreeing with what Pete had said about the marketing, I think that was such a good strategy. And then even if you look up on the IMDb now, they don't use character names; they use their actual names. So I'm sure at the time, people like did not know if it was real or not, and it really did look real. As we're like, I do personally prefer Steadicam shots just because motion sickness, it's not for me. But I do think there's some of the very kind of creative shots that you think of, like, when she's in the tent and she's like
Kill.
doing it. Yeah.
Love it. All right, we got something going for us this episode. All right, so we're going to be moving on to characters. And for characters, we're going to start off with a character in himself, Brad.
Characters, oh boy, I don't have enough time. After we're done with this, I got to tell you a great story about Heather Donahue. But characters, both of these, they were all really believable, especially at the time when you watch them. I watched both back today while I was working, and I don't want to say they don't hold up the same, but you can really tell, like when you watch Blair Witch the first time, if you're in that era, it all felt really real and it didn't feel like it was acted. Now it kind of feels a little more acted and a little more scripted than we felt. I think we were kind of believing that, this was a found footage film. So no, they're not acting. It's all real. But now that you can kind of see it. Quickly, I'll give it to Blair Witch for the characters. I hate that guy in Paranormal Activity.
All right, so
You're at 39, just so you know.
And I love how you teased our audience. It's not going to get to hear your story about Heather Donahue.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
well, I mean, we're going through this pretty quick. Maybe they will.
Yeah, that's true. Well, but campfire storytellers. All right, Michelle.
I'm gonna have to give it to Blair Witch. For either movie, we don't have a whole lot of backstory, but somehow to me, the film students in Blair Witch feel a little more authentic, maybe just a little bit more fleshed out than the couple in Paranormal Activity. We don't have any likable characters in either movie, I don't think. I think there's annoying people in both movies who talk through the entire movie. But for me, I like the characters in Blair Witch. They just felt a little more real to me.
All right. Haley, characters.
So I definitely agree with Michelle that I also find that none of the characters are particularly likable, and especially in Paranormal Activity, they're just fighting all the time. I'm like, this is stressful. This is a lot. As we're in Paranormal Activity, I find the relationship is definitely less believable, just because they don't seem too coupley to me, or just some of his kind of lines where he's like, I'm going to do my own research. And, they have like a professional demonologist. He's like, no, I can look it up on the internet and solve this. So I would say that Blair Witch feels more authentic of that kind of relationship and how essentially.
Kill. Every time now, I love this.
You're going for it. Hey, you're not here to sit and watch everybody, right? You're here to say your piece. All right, we love it. Uncle Pete, you've been surprisingly alive for most of the categories tonight. Let's see what happens here.
I hate with a vehement passion Mika. If I could reach through the screen and punch him, I would. Like Haley said, there's no chemistry between him and Katie. He's like, his girlfriend is terrified. It's live-in girlfriend where they have a house. His live-in girlfriend, he's like annoying her, antagonizing her. Let me put powder on the floor to try and get this demon. Let me antagonize a demon. Doesn't give a crap about his girlfriend. Heather, the other guys, awesome chemistry. When Heather's screaming and running, I get chills and goosebumps. Even now, knowing it's a movie, just her portrayal, how terrified they all look, how angry they all look. And
Kill. Gotcha.
Good. I like how Blair Witch won the categories, and everybody's like, Heather and the guy. It's like it's so generic. Like we don't even know what the guys' names are, but they're they won the category. But it goes to show how I guess
Josh and Mike, right? I think Mike. Yeah.
I haven't asked the question still, but all right. So we're moving on to the next category, which is scare factor. Which film scared you more? And we'll start with Michelle.
Definitely Blair Witch. You've got the dark woods. You've got the handprints on the wall at the end. You've got all these sounds. You know where they're coming from. They're all around them. There's all this weird stuff going on. For me, that is so much scarier than some sounds, the covers being pulled off the bed, those kinds of things that are happening in Paranormal Activity. It's just not that scary to me at all. So definitely Blair Witch.
All right. Brad.
I'm giving this one a Paranormal Activity. And I think as much as the woods are scary, and there's definitely a scare factor to Blair Witch, at the time I remember watching it in theaters and being like, what the fuck am I watching? Like, because it was such a different type of movie for the period of time, right? And yeah, when it gets scary, it's scary, but like it took a long time to get there. I think by that time I was kind of bored originally. I like it more now than I did then. But Paranormal Activity, the thought of something in your home that you really can't do much about. And I worked in the paranormal field for a few years in TV and some other things. So I don't know, maybe I'm biased, but like I find that scarier. That's something in my house.
That's scary.
All right. Brad's done, but cue the comeback. Paranormal Activity's on the board. Let's see if they can keep it going, Uncle Pete.
I saw Blair Witch in theaters when I was underway on my ship, so I only seen the trailer once or twice. So I went into knowing not if it was real or not. So I remember we at the theater, you see Josh in the corner, Heather gets knocked down. I'm like, oh man, that was pretty creepy. Then as I'm leaving the theater, I'm talking to somebody. He's like, you know why they were standing in the corner? I was like, no. Then he's like, oh, remember she said they would make the person stand in the corner? And I got the chills, like a cold rush all over me. Never came close to feeling anything like that with Paranormal Activity. Heather screaming earlier, yeah, that gave me the chills. Even though now I know it's fake. When they told me that, I felt like a cold rush of water all over me to just like, oh crap. And it was that effect there.
Well, that comeback was snuffed pretty quick. All right, Haley, you're up.
So I'm going to give it to Blair Witch. I did previously mention that the first time I saw it was at a sleepover, and I remember literally all of them were like screaming like, oh my god, this is crazy, and like everyone had to sleep with the lights on, and I was like, this is definitely spooky. And then like because I kind of grew up, you know, just outside of Toronto, and it was very foresty, so it's like that was the whole kind of vibe. So it was definitely very spooky, and also just camping. I don't think I give off the camping impression kind of vibe, but like that would just be a nightmare, being lost, and then having that all kind of happen. And witches are very cool. So
survived one.
Leighanne, you look
39
shocked.
seconds. Yeah, 1 second left. I am shocked.
you were totally ready to kill. All right, so that brings to a close that round, and we are swiftly moving on to the next round, which is poster. So original movie poster, and for this one, we will start off with the coffee god himself, Brad.
That's me. Yeah, the Blair Witch, I think poster definitely takes the win on this. Paranormal Activity was kind of generic. I mean, it shows one of the scarier parts of what happens in the movie, I think, to a certain degree. But that Blair Witch poster, I think, has been mimicked so many times over the years. It's iconic in its own right. And I mean, who hasn't tried to blow a snot bubble like Heather Donahue to kind of, you know, you don't see it on the poster, but you know that's in that period, right? So who hasn't tried to do that? I was going to make a snot bubble drink tonight because I have like green slime to put on it, but I didn't have time.
All right.
I'll make one next week, Jay.
Great. Great. When I come see you, serve it up for me.
Yep. You got it.
I got to say, you know, while you're bringing up snot bubbles, there's very few things that gross me out in film or anything like that. Like obviously eyes I get a little bit squeamish on, but it's snot. It like as soon as I see that, I almost have to turn away. Like that's how messed up it is. So everybody's got their kryptonite. All right. Speaking of kryptonite, the lovely Haley Scott is next.
I am also going to give it to the Blair Witch, just because it is definitely a more compelling image. Having kind of the forest at the top and it essentially being almost a black and white cover, even though like it is in color. Because you can see her head and her eyes, and you see the flashlight. So there's a lot of kind of anticipation to what that is. As we're Paranormal Activity, it's just them in bed with whatever, and it's like you're kind of right to it. As it doesn't really build up any kind of interest to it in the same way, and it also just kind of looks not really like a real movie poster in my opinion, as we're like Blair Witch, like that looks like a real poster.
All right.
Another 39-seconder. You're getting it down.
It's getting a little bit better. All right, Michelle, you're up.
I don't think either movie poster is terribly exciting, to be honest. That said, I'm going to have to definitely go with Blair Witch. It's that iconic scene of Heather Donahue. Like Haley said, that really gets your attention, makes you wonder what's going on in that movie, as opposed to Paranormal Activity, which is just basically a scene of the bedroom. You don't really know what's going on there. I just don't find it as interesting as the Blair Witch. So, definitely Blair Witch.
All right, Pete.
Here comes a curveball. I'm going to give it to Paranormal Activity because I'm with you, Jason. I hate snot. Puking and gore guts, I can laugh at it. It's hysterical. I can't stand with snot and like boogers. So every time I see that poster, I think of the snot bubbles. If you remove her face and it's just like the woods, I think it would have been more effective for me. But Paranormal Activity, you got a couple in bed in the middle of the night holding each, next to each other with like a shadow figure on the wall. I think about me and MJ in bed. I was like, that scares me more than what that poster does. So I was more intrigued by the poster for Paranormal Activity, putting myself in the position, like being part of that scene.
Cool. All right. Very well said. Can't disagree. I do think Paranormal, like when you look at Paranormal and it's got like the writing of like, the accounts and stuff like that, it looks like a PowerPoint. I don't know. So it kind of takes me out of it a little bit, but but they don't pay me for my opinions. We pay you all good people for your strong opinions. And for that, we are going to the last category, and it's the ending. And both of these films have, a lot is wound up into the ending of these films, the build. So it'll be interesting to see, at least it'll be interesting to see who wins this category. Let's see. We'll start off with Michelle.
It's definitely got to be Blair Witch for me. Like Pete mentioned earlier, the scene in the basement with Mike facing the wall and all you can hear, you can't see Heather, but you can hear her screaming. That just gives me chills every single time I watch this movie. I find that to be really, really scary. Especially after they just seen the handprints on the wall, of the little kids, kids who were kidnapped and murdered. The independent Paranormal Activity, you got Katie killing Mika and then slicing her own throat. That's just not as satisfying of an ending for me, personally. I like to be scared.
Kill!
We got Michelle! Okay, so this episode isn't a complete loss. All right. Well said, though. We'll go to Uncle Pete.
I like the jump scare at the end of Paranormal Activity. That was a good one. It got me when I saw it in the theater. But I have to echo back to what I said earlier. And when Michelle said, standing in the corner, Heather's screaming, getting knocked down. She's screaming, Josh, Josh. You see the handprints on the wall, and it makes you think back to everything you just watched. And then the movie just ends. You hear that camera roll film ticking, and it's just so effective. You don't get that with Paranormal Activity. Okay, Mika got thrown at the camera. She comes up, slashes her throat. Okay, easy day on that one, Blair Witch.
All right. He almost looks upset about it. No? Oh, yeah. All right, Haley, you're up.
So for the ending, I'm also going to give it to Blair Witch. I do think there is kind of a bit of a similarity in a way in the endings. But I do think with the way that the camera work is, that makes Blair Witch definitely much more scary and unsettling, as we're, having in Paranormal Activity, her with the still cam, going up to it. That's a little less spooky, as where, seeing him facing the wall and kind of all the shakiness and the screaming, that's really unsettling, and it feels definitely more real, like you're a part of that experience. And I just think that the way the plot concludes is definitely much more interesting.
We end how we started with you, Haley, when we love it. All right, Brad,
Yeah.
the final opinion of the night.
So both of these movies really are pretty open-ended at the end, right? Like we're left with what's going to happen after this, I think. But if you're an old guy like me and you were around and seeing it in the theaters in 1999, you will remember that the buzz after the ending of that movie in the real world was just crazy. I mean, it was all over the news. It was on Entertainment Tonight. It was everywhere, and everyone was trying to get answers to what actually happened, because a lot of people still believed it was real after the fact, right? So for a movie to have that and have an ending like that, and people still asking questions about what's going to happen next. And I remember up here, like Future Shop and Best Buy had like pamphlets at the checkout about the next movie. Okay. Fine.
Wow, you
Can't argue it.
that was going somewhere there. I was like, I gotta hear it. That was the first time I was hoping Leighanne would kind of cool it, but there's no stopping her when she gets going.
Nah.
So.
Rules
No
are
mercy.
rules, man. Rules are rules.
No mercy.
Exactly. It's funny. I'll while the show's over and I feel like we have some pretty good time, I'll just throw in my 2 cents worth with the ending of Blair Witch. At the time, I really thought it was kind of cool. A couple of weeks later, I didn't. I thought, man, I went through a lot of spinning. I happened to see that movie on the opening night in the front row. And not a cool decision on my part, I'll admit. But I was like, after all of that, I'm seeing this guy facing a wall. He could be taking a leak. I don't know. So I was a little bit upset after the fact. But at the time, I thought, oh, that was kind of cool. It was an eerie feeling. But anyway, so I don't know how much adding Leighanne's got to do right here, but as we introduced in the last show, there's a new, I guess, kind of honor to be handed out at the end of every show, and that's the opinion of the match. So I'm going to call it a hot take, and I'm going to give it to Brad, actually, for his filmmaking take. When you touched on the fact that when Blair Witch came out, there was no internet. It was in its infancy. A lot of people didn't have it. There was internet, sorry, but it was not like you couldn't Google what the whole deal was. And the marketing campaign for Blair Witch was genius. If not better than the film.
If you asked Jeeves about that in 1999, he had no idea. Jeeves had no clue.
You're really dating yourself now, but it's all good. We're going for it. So that was the hot take of the match. So congrats to Brad, and now I will hand it over to Leighanne.
Well, I will say this is the first episode where we don't have a final girl or guy. You all died, so congratulations. You're a bunch of dead folk. But Haley, you were the dead queen. You died the most, so congrats on that. Wear your crown proudly. I think we all know that Blair Witch just wiped this off the table. This wasn't even a match. This is probably the furthest I've seen in a match yet. There was nothing.
How many did you have? I don't put you on the spot. Do you have how many categories Paranormal actually even won? Do you have that right there, or you still got to work through it?
Paranormal won? Paranormal won none of them.
No, how many?
Votes,
How many votes?
It had three votes. Yeah,
3. All right.
3.
All right.
3
So
yeah.
it's probably safe to say that if this was a record, this episode would be on the B side for sure. But at that being said, I thought the opinions were great and they were valid. I mean, it was a tough matchup. There was a lot of love for Blair Witch, and that's a cool thing. Because,
hold on, wait. Wait.
Oh.
Wait. Hold on. Hold the phone. It's only, we've got 23 minutes left in the hour that we give up to do this. I think it's time to do Dr. Giggles versus the dentist. Right
On
now,
the
on
spot?
the spot.
On the spot.
On the spot.
Let's
go to the
what?
producers.
Listen,
What do the producers say?
everybody's a writer here. No, that's a hard no. There will never be Dr. Giggles versus the dentist on this show. Ever. Yeah, we'll see.
I was actually getting excited for that. I was already going through my picks.
See, I like Uncle Pete.
No, listen, I was being tactical there. I throw out an opinion like that, and that's what gets people riled up, right? I guarantee you it'll work. Anyways, but for this episode, that's about it. I'd love to thank my awesome slasher, Leighanne. Thank you for doing such a great job. I would like to thank the panel for being on the show and offering their great opinions, as they always do. And join us on the next episode. It's a special episode. It is a Final Girl episode. It'll be Laurie Strode versus Nancy Thompson on the next Horror Face-Off. We'll see you then.
On the next episode of Horror Face-Off, it's a special episode. A final girl battle between Laurie Strode of Halloween and Nancy Thompson of A Nightmare on Elm Street.